I'm Sara Hey with Bob Clements International, and today I have Bob Clements with me.
Good to be here. I'm excited about our conversation today.
That's right, and today we are talking about the triage process. Yes, the process that we talk about all of the time, but so many of you assume that is just a suggestion in the process.
Yeah, it's not a suggestion.
It's not a suggestion. The triage process is what everything else we do in the service department is based upon.
It is.
But it's the easiest one to throw out the door. So let's dive in to the service process today, and specifically the triage process. Now, when we think about a unit coming in for service, the very first thing we have to do is set the unit up for triage.
That's exactly right.
So walk us through, what does the triage process actually entail?
Okay, so triaging, if you think about a paramedic at an accident site, they triage. So they're trying to communicate to the hospital, this person has a steering wheel in their chest, or this person has a broken arm. So it gives the hospital a chance to kind of get set up for the patients coming in. Well, that's really what triage is in your shop. So your lot is your accident site. So you've got broken equipment that's sitting out there. And what we want to do is, before we actually bring it into the shop, we want to go ahead and get some things moving forward. So like parts specifically.
Sure.
So that when the machine does come in, the parts are already there for it 4 or 5 days later. And then when we bring it in, we're really set up to do it. And that's really how you maximize your efficiency in your shop. Our shops are really efficient primarily because of our triage process.
Absolutely. So when we think about the triage process specifically, there are a few steps that we take as soon as the unit comes in. The first thing we do is, when a unit is checked in for service, we put a red ribbon on the unit. Why in the world do we put a red ribbon on the unit?
Well, red signifies it's bleeding. So let's go back to the ambulance again. So it's a red, and it's surveying tape. When we talk about ribbon, it's just surveying tape. You can get it on any number of places to do it out there. But red lets us know that nobody's looked at this unit yet. It has not been triaged. And our goal, again, is to look at every unit within 24 hours. And we can start then communicating to the customer what we're finding out. So I'm not going to wait for 2 weeks. Even though I may be 2 weeks booked ahead, I'm not going to wait for 2 weeks to look at something, because all that does is make customers call us over and over and over again wanting to know if we've looked at their unit yet. So we actually get that done within 24 hours on the unit. We put the red ribbon on it to let us know that if 24 hours, if this time tomorrow that red ribbon's still on there, my triage process is broken.
That's absolutely. The other thing that happens with triage is it actually allows us to get the parts moving before we actually need them. So we're not 2 weeks in, to your point. We haven't communicated with the parts department, and so we do what most of you do, which is you blame it on the manufacturer for being back ordered.
Yeah, the part's on back order, which means the part never really got ordered.
It never actually got ordered. That's not what we should be doing. And honestly, y'all are probably winners and don't actually do that anyways.
Bless the manufacturers for taking all of the "it's on back order" hits instead of "we didn't order it" hit.
And that's it. And so what we're doing is providing a better customer experience to our customers, and we're actually giving the parts department a leg up so that we don't have to be the brunt of all the bad juju in your dealership. Okay, so that's what's happening when we're doing this. The other thing that the triage process does is it reduces chaos in our service department. And regardless of where you are in the dealership, whether you're the GM, you're the owner, the service manager, parts manager, I don't care who you are, chaos costs you money. And so when we look at the service department, we want to do everything we possibly can to reduce the chaos, and it starts with the triage process. So, okay, walk us through the specific process that a unit comes in for service. How do we go through the triage process specifically?
Okay, so again, we start with what we call a triage sheet. And again, if you're in our toolbox, you'll see there's, for every type of equipment you can imagine, we've created a sheet. And what the sheet does is really take your service coordinator, which is another vlog we should do at some point, but it takes your service coordinator, gives them a tool to go through and look at some basic things on the unit, like tire pressures and fuel levels, fluid levels, not just fuel levels, electricals and things like this. So they'll go through and do kind of some of the initial things, kind of like the nurse that you meet before you get to meet the doctor, and they take your weight and height and things like that. So that's really what it does. But then the triage sheet itself then is something that your service tech, whoever's going to be working on that unit, they would go ahead and complete the other parts of it, and they were going to look at why the equipment's here to begin with.
Sure.
But they're going to look at, are there other things that we might want to encourage the customer to take care of, because our goal always in the shop is to work to bring equipment back to OEM specs.
Sure.
So anything I can do to make that equipment like it was somewhat new, that's what I'm trying to do in the shop. But they're going to go through that process. Now, if it's on bigger equipment, so if you're working on excavators or tractors or things like this, they'll literally go, your technician will clock onto the work order on that, and we will bill for that triage time.
Absolutely.
If you're on smaller equipment like outdoor power equipment and things like this, we typically allocate 6 minutes for anything that you walk behind and about 15 minutes for anything that you actually set on and move. And we allocate that time on it. And we do build that into the job. So again, we're not losing that time. But they go through and do it, and then when they get the triage sheet done, then they take it and give it back to, in most cases, our service coordinator, who takes it back to the service manager, and the service manager decides, do we have the parts? Do we think we have the parts we need? Let's say it's just needing for a basic service. Do we have those things? Or is there something on here that I need to communicate to the parts manager that, hey, look, I know you probably don't have this in stock, and we're going to need this in 5 days because this unit's going to come in 5 days. So then the parts manager has time to get that part on a stocking order coming in.
Sure.
So when I need it, the parts manager's got it there for me.
Well, and I think one thing that's so important that you mentioned just briefly is that we have the technician do the triage for us. I can't tell you the number of times either a service manager or someone else in the dealership says, oh, we'll do triage, but I'm going to do it. No, we want the technician to do it, because technicians by nature are problem solvers. And so when they can have their hands on the unit and start thinking through the process of repairing it, they're going to be more efficient on the actual repair of the unit. So no, you as the service manager should not do the triage. No, the service coordinator should not do the whole entire triage. No, they're going to miss some things. We want the technician who will be working on the unit to triage the unit.
Exactly.
Now, this is all good and well, but in the midst of season, do you know what the first thing to go is?
Triage.
Triage.
Because we're too busy to do it.
We're too busy. But it's the thing that will reduce the most chaos in your service department, but it's the first thing out the window. So when we start helping dealerships implement triage in the service department, one of the most powerful things you can do is pick a time, or in the midst of season, ideally 2 times, every single day that you stop working the service department and you go out and triage any new units that we have. And so typically when we're working with a dealership, we have them do it at 11 o'clock and at 4 o'clock. And now, Bob, why in the world would we choose 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock as our time to do triage?
Well, because technicians want to get to lunch and they want to go home.
I feel that deeply. Okay, I feel that deeply.
So what I learned over 35 years is number one, if I can get them to do a task from 11 to 12, it takes them away a little bit from what they've been doing on, because they do start to lose a little bit of productivity before lunch. So I give them a new task that's something different. And again, they want to get it done because they want to get the lunch. And I do the exact same thing at 4 o'clock because they want to get home. And I find that they don't lag it out. They don't draw it out. They want to be home leave by 5. So I give them an hour to do that. And again, I want to keep in mind that we are billing for this time. So when we say take time to do triage, you are still billing for this time. We're adding an end to the job or the repair.
That's absolutely it. So here's the thing. As you think about your service department right now, if you say, I want to get out of this merry-go-round from hell, like what I would encourage you to do, your very first place to start is start triaging the units as they come in. This is the very first step you've got to take to reclaiming your service department inside of your dealership.